So in this video we're going to block a crescent shaped shawl. So I have soaked it in lukewarm water for about 10 minutes with a little bit of wool wash, and then I have rolled it up into a towel to squeeze out the excess water. So this is a crescent shawl, but it has some short rows in it. I have my blocking mats on the table, and I'm going to use my Pro nip blockers. Okay. So I'm going to start in the middle here, that's the middle of the shawl, and then I'm going to, so I've smoothed this shawl out so I have like the rough shape of it, and then I'm going to start putting these nip blockers in. So you want to put them right next to each other, you don't want gaps between them, because when we stretch it you will then end up with scallops. So unless you want scallops, which you don't really want along this edge, even though this edge is curved, it's still actually straight. So we're going to just put these in next to each other. You can get curved blocking wires, but I don't like them. I have 2 sets, I think, that I bought quite a few years ago, but I don't like them. They're too thin and I just find they're too bendy. These nip blockers from Pro are much better. So you can see these in the introduction to blocking section. I've listed all the stuff that I use. Okay, so that's this side, and then normally I would pin it all the way along the top before I start pinning, stretching it out, but I'm going to, because of the shape and size of this shawl, I'm actually going to stretch some of this out now and pin it. So I'm going to use blocking pins, and it's got edging that's knitted on sideways, and here it has points. So I'm going to not pull all those points out at the moment, because what you can do, if you stretch it too much on this side, I might find I can't stretch it enough on the other side. So I'm just going to put some of these points out, because every single one of these points has to have a pin in it. But I'm going to just do a few to start with, and then I'll come back later when I've pinned out the other side and pull the rest of these out. It's just so that I know roughly how much I can stretch it, because if you stretch it too much on one side, you then can't stretch enough on the other side, which is a bit of a nuisance. You also got to get the shape roughly right, so I'm just going to put some pins in here just to, so I know what roughly shape and size this will be. This side is longer because I have more short rows on that side. So now I'm going to carry on putting the nip blockers in. So we'll go, I'm actually going to slide this off because I am worried that I'm not going to have enough blocking mats, and he was only using half of these. So I'm actually going to just slide them down a bit and take that one off. And then if I I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm also going to take this one off. Okay. So my shawl is going a little bit straight here, and then it curves, and there's a little bit here where I don't have a blocking mat underneath it. Okay, so I've got a little stretcher that doesn't have a nip blocker on it, but I'm hoping that will be okay. I'm also going to just stretch a couple here, stretch this out. So I'm not pulling these as much as I think I will be able to pull them. I'm just pulling them a little bit just to get a rough shape of this shawl. I just want to see exactly what kind of shape and size it's going to end up being. And then I'm going to just stretch this bit out a bit. Okay, so this is going to go straight out like that, And then I'm going to put more of these knit blockers in here. I probably would be okay to put a blocking wire in here, but I'm using the knit blockers now, so I might as well just stick with those. Having said that, I'm running out of the knit blockers, so I may change my mind in a minute and go back and put a wire in. We'll see. It curves a little bit around on the corner here. These smaller knit blockers are ideal for that. So I'm not really doing anything to stretch this top edge at the moment. I've just kind of smoothed it out, but I haven't stretched it a lot. So now I can start stretching it out as much as I want to stretch it. Because I've already stretched it on the other side, I haven't pinned every single point, but I've stretched it quite a bit. So it means that stretching it on this side, I haven't got to allow for the fact that I'm going to have to stretch it on the other side. So you will find if you stretch it too much on one side, you then, when you go back and try and match the other side, it won't work. And this shawl, even though it's crescent shawl, is not symmetrical because it does have short rows. And it does have more short rows on this side that I'm working now than it does on the other side. So I was hoping I wouldn't need any more blocking mats here because I am running out. These are Knit Pro blocking mats, and I bought them quite a few years ago, and then last year or earlier at the beginning of this year I tried to buy some more, tried to buy another pack, and unfortunately Knit Pro have changed the size of their blocking mats. So my new blocking mats are bigger than these and don't fit in. So I bought an extra pack because I thought that would be, give me 3 packs, that would be enough. But unfortunately it is not, because they don't fit because they're a different size. So I'm just going along here now and I'm putting it into every single point. So on every single point there is a big triple yarn over. So I have a big hole, and I basically just put the pin into that hole and then pull it as tight as it will go. So I pull it as much as I can, but these holes are quite close together, so I've missed a couple. Gotta be careful and make sure I don't miss any because they are quite frequent. If you use blocking wires, you would just thread it through all these big triple yarn overs. And when you use blocking wires, you do get more even edge because all these points are pulled the same amount. When you are pinning, putting a pin into each one, it's a little bit more difficult to get them all exactly even. But I don't think it matters too much as long as they're roughly even, because once the shawl is on you, nobody's going to see if some of these points are pulled slightly more than the other. You know, that's just not going to be visible when you're wearing it. I need to get it to look as nice as I can because obviously I want it to look nice for the photographs. But I don't think you have to stress about these being like super even. Okay, so I can just... So what's happening now that I'm stretching it that end, this is lifting slightly. So when that happens, what I tend to do is I tend to just lift these up and let this relax back a little bit. Not too much. But if it starts to lift here, so that the fabric becomes very taut here, I sometimes just lift these up a little bit just to let the fabric relax a little bit. But I do want the fabric to be fairly taut. I tend to stretch my shawls as much as I possibly can. This is a combination of garter stitch and lace. The lace is very simple, these big yarn overs. with a slightly different lace pattern on the before the edging. Okay, so I'm just starting to go all the way around, and if I see any that don't look like I've pulled them as far as the others, I'm just correcting them as I go, because once I've moved this off the table I don't want to have to move it back again. So I'm just going to slide this across. Got to be very careful when I do this, because it would be very easy to mess up the whole thing. So I'm just going to release these back a little bit because it's lifting a little bit on this side. Okay. So I'm trying not to pull this because I haven't got any more blocking mass to put in here. So I'm just trying to, I have these like jigsaw things coming out. So some of these I'm actually going a little bit off center just to try and fit them in. I probably could do with another row of mats, but I don't have that. So this one should really be there, but there's no mat to put it into there. So I'm just putting it a little bit off to one side just so I can stretch it enough. It's not ideal, but you know, you have to work with what you have and the space you have and the equipment you have. And I know that you guys may not all have the perfect equipment and the perfect huge amount of space, so I'm just showing you how I sometimes have to make do, and hopefully that will make it easy for you guys. So I'm just going to do this section here. As you can see here, it doesn't look very nice at the moment, so I'm just going to pin this section here out before I go any further on the other side. Yeah, I probably could stretch these a little bit further down if I had some more blocking mats. But if one thing you can do if you don't have enough space or you don't have enough mats, if you're doing a shawl that's symmetrical, you can fold it in half and then pin it out. Wouldn't work that well with this shawl, I don't think, because it's not symmetrical. But if you had a triangle shawl or even a crescent shawl that was symmetrical, that would work, I think. I have done it with circular shawls. Okay, so let's work across here. Don't have that much left to go now. This is the bit I just pulled out to start with, but I didn't pull each one out. So now I will just pin out the points in between and just make sure I pull them out properly. So I'm just going along and adjusting them. So a lot of people wonder about how much to stretch their shawls. I would say for a lace shawl, you can stretch it as much as you possibly can. Depends on the yarn and the shape. But my rule for lace shawls is just to stretch it as much as I can. Most fibres will spring back a little bit, like shrink back a little bit once you've stretched them, especially if it has wool in it. So this is what's this yarn? Merino, yak and silk. So hopefully it will keep its shape quite well. It has quite, I can't remember the exact content now, but it has a reasonable amount of silk in it. And silk will keep its shape better. So hopefully this will keep its shape a little bit better. I'm just on the last little bit up here. Is the trickiest bit to try and do because it's not on the table. But I want to go a few more pins. And then I will do like a sweep across the whole shawl so you can see what it looks like and how it's hanging off my table. So let's look and see how this is looking. So it's hanging off the table here. So actually it's being supported on the chair. And then we go across. And then over here is where it gets a bit interesting. This is hanging off the table, but I pulled it a little bit too tight. So it's actually loosened a bit there. So I need to try and fix that. And then here is kind of completely collapsed off the table. It'll probably be okay to dry, but I'm going to try and see if I can straighten that out and get it back on the table, just because it is a little bit easier. So that is the whole shawl. Let's just go back. So that is the whole shawl. So it's kind of a crescent shape, but a little bit of an odd crescent shape. But hopefully that was helpful. And if you have any questions, just ask below.